Lewis Show, the second hour here on this Thursday morning. Jonathan Dent filling in for Art today. We talked with Jimmy Green in the first hour. Coming up on Focus, we're going to be talking about M&R Garage Door, focusing in on that there. But for this hour, we're going to talk about some important stuff when it comes to law enforcement here in our Great Lakes Bay region, especially the community of Bay City. We have Bay City Department of Public Safety Director Caleb Rowell. Good morning, Caleb.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we have Deputy Director Rob Shank with us as well. Welcome.
Good morning. You're gonna make us follow Jimmy Green. That's a hard act to follow there.
It is tough. Yeah, sometimes it's when I'm interviewing Jimmy, it's just sit back and let him go.
Right.
No, great to have you both here with us today. Just for some background, because I look at kind of the communities in the area and how things are set up when it comes to public safety, law enforcement. I help out in the newsroom from time to time. Bay City looks a little bit different from some of our other law enforcement and public safety setups in the region, with police and fire being combined. Can you just give us a rundown on how that's kind of structured?
Yeah, initially, this wasn't something that we set out to, be a different type of setup than other communities across the state. It's something that financially we were kind of in a pickle a while back, and we had to come up with a way to provide a high level of service to the community with the funding that we had. So the best option that was really available was to figure out a way to combine where we cross-trained some people and enabled them to do both professions, and not just do them, but do them well. So we ended up with a public safety model in which we have 21 full-time fire personnel that they call it working the floor, meaning assigned to the stations. And then the other 57 sworn officers are all but, I think, one or two are cross-trained currently.
Okay.
So that they can respond to both law enforcement and fire incidents. But it was basically a financial thing at the beginning, and we're pushing forward and making the best of it.
Yeah. When it comes to that kind of cross-training, are sworn officers, when they're cross-trained, are they like fully, qualified? I don't know if that's the right word. Firefighters, where they're right there on the job in the same way? Or is it a little bit different?
It's a little bit different. It's the same training.
Yeah.
They're certified just like any other firefighter at the scene, but generally they spend a good portion of their time doing law enforcement duties.
Yeah.
So, and the fire personnel spend 100% of their time doing fire and medical service. So naturally, they're kind of the leaders at the fire scene. Like the full-time fire personnel direct, the cross-trained personnel for the most part when it comes down to it. But they can all do the job very well.
That's a good structure for things. When it comes to the department right now, something that we've seen over the past several years in law enforcement, public safety around the country has been staffing, has been a major hurdle. How are we doing in Bay City with that?
Thankfully, we're doing really well right now. I always like to knock on wood when I say that, because it's it has been a struggle compared to years past. We just do things differently, I guess, but we've gotten to the same point where we're able to stay fairly close to our full staffing level, for the last few years anyway. There was a time when we were down double-digit people trying to still provide the same level of service to the community, but when you don't have people, it's hard to duplicate that. So, but we've luckily the state of Michigan provided a lot of money so that we could pay for people to go to a police academy, because finding applicants that are already certified police officers that have been through an academy is almost non-existent now. And it's funny how that's changed maybe in the past 5 years. You could never nobody hired people and sent them to an academy probably 5 years ago. You had to go to an academy on your own, and you'd apply for departments and get a job. But now there's very few people that graduate from a police academy that aren't already hired by somebody.
Yeah, if I can add to that too, that the talent pool is still really good. Actually, we just actually did some interviews for both police and fire side, and I'm fortunate enough to get to sit in on these interviews and be a part of it. And every time I'm blown away at the talent pool, the level, quality of people that we get to apply. It's a really tough, thankless job sometimes, but we're still getting good people. So we're fortunate enough that, like right now, we have 3 people currently in the Delta Police Academy. We have 4 that are gearing up for the January Academy, and it's like an endless cycle. But from the point that we actually hire someone to them being counted on the road, it's almost an entire year, being that we're a public safety department. The Police Academy, Fire Academy, field training, and so it's almost a year. It's a big endeavor, and I get really excited about it because I get to interview these folks and be one of the first to meet them and introduce them to the director and say, like, hey, this is a rock star. We got to hire this guy, and we've been very fortunate. We have really good staff.
And we're fortunate to have Delta with a police academy right here in the area as well. I'm sure that contributes a lot when it comes to hiring too.
Yeah, there's other agencies that don't have a police academy close by, and if you hire somebody that's out of county, say, then you're talking about having to lodge them and pay for their meals, and it's a whole nother expense that we're thankful not to have.
Yeah, fantastic. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I know there's been a desire. I don't know if it's a push or an initiative or whatever. What's the right word? But a desire for some license plate readers in the city, and that's been something that the Department of Public Safety has taken an interest in. We'll talk about that with Director of Public Safety Caleb Rowell and Deputy Director Rob Schenk after these notes.
Gotta go.
Welcome back to the Art Lewis Show. Jonathan Dent filling in for Art this morning. I'm talking with Bay City Department of Public Safety Director Caleb Rowell and Deputy Director Rod Schenk. Not Rob.
You got it.
I don't know who this Rob guy is, but he's taking all your credit. We're talking all things public safety in Bay City. We talked a little bit about the structure of the department because I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to public departments, when it comes to that kind of thing. But something that prompted this conversation, Caleb, you were speaking at a chamber event a few weeks ago, and I had seen some things circulating in the news, social media, different spaces a while ago about trying to get flock cameras implemented in Bay City. Can you just go over what flock cameras are and why they're useful?
Yes. They're basically they're a standalone license plate reader that attaches to like a pole. They're not on patrol cars or anything, what we're looking into anyway. They take pictures of license plates as they go by. That's the long and short of it. What it does is compares it to a hot list that law enforcement can create, say, of stolen vehicles or vehicles that are wanted in a serious crime or vehicles that are wanted in a hit and run. And it will compare those license plate that it takes pictures of to that list. If it gets a hit, meaning one of those cars that's on the list drives by one of the license plate readers, it instantly notifies the officers that are working, hey, this car, this stolen car just drove by this intersection. Mm-hmm. And, officers can respond to that area to try and locate the stolen vehicle. This is technology that's been around for a few years, and it's expensive, but it's, in my opinion, well worth the investment based on the feedback I've gotten from chiefs across the state of Michigan. I'm fortunate to be on a couple committees, and groups throughout the state where I go and talk to other police chiefs to talk about what works and what doesn't. When I started 27 years ago, we had 83 police officers and almost that many firefighters, 60 some, I believe. So you go from 140 some first responders down to 70 some now. There's a big difference.
Cover the gaps there.
And trying to cover the gaps, I think technology is a great way to do it. because it's not as expensive as personnel and not as valuable as personnel, really, but it's a good stopgap and it's a force multiplier. There have been so many instances where these license plate readers have been so beneficial in solving crimes that likely would not have been solved otherwise or would have taken a lot longer to solve. And these cameras have been the difference. And this is, testimonials throughout the state and the country.
Well, I had heard of them before, hadn't seen anything, but working with the news department just earlier this year, there was the man that was missing from the Renaissance Festival in southern Michigan. His license plate was seen on one of these cameras going through Saginaw.
Yes, yep.
So that's kind of a recent thing in the area that really brought that to my attention anyway.
And there's plenty in the area. Like Saginaw has had them for a little while now. And, unfortunately, we can't really talk about anything that's active with their investigations, but we've talked to them, off the record and whatnot, and they can't say enough about how helpful it has been in giving them leads and solving crimes in this area specifically. And to be honest with you, if you drive, more than 20 minutes in each direction from where we're at right now, I guarantee you're going to go by at least one of these license plate readers, and you won't know it because why would you? It's not running your name. It's not tracking people. It's only taking a picture of a vehicle. To get that vehicle's information, you have to be a police officer to look up that plate and, use other technology that we have to find out who owns the vehicle, where it belongs or things of that nature.
You mentioned that these are standalone, just put them on a pole somewhere and they monitor an area, not attached to a vehicle. Does the Bay City Department of Public Safety have vehicle-based license plate readers?
We do not.
No. Okay.
No.
I've heard of that being used for years.
I know other agencies that do have it, but we do not.
Okay. Is there a reason for that?
It's an expensive. Everything's expensive when it comes to technology. But when you have an officer there that can look at a plate and run it themselves,
fair enough.
I mean, I see the investment better to monitor intersections,
especially when you're stretched out a little bit.
You're stretched thin. It's like I say, it's a force multiplier to put. What we're asking for is 13 of the license plate readers, which is about $40,000 a year. But you're talking, to put 13 officers at intersections would be a lot more than that, obviously. So to me, the investment is well worth it.
Absolutely. There are concerns over privacy when it comes to you putting cameras in public spaces.
Correct.
You addressed those a little bit in your talk before.
Yes, I'm. Believe me, I don't like Big Brother as much as anybody else. Like it's creepy to me how much you're tracked already. Like every time we have an incident now, it's commonplace where you go up and just knock on doors. Hey, can we look at your cameras? Because everybody's got a Ring doorbell camera, or there's very few blocks within the city that people don't have their own type of surveillance system. And like I say, I understand the concerns where this could be abused. And it is definitely possible. I see that as, it's my job to make sure it isn't if we do get this technology. But there's all sorts of things that we could abuse. Anybody could abuse. Like this is a far out example, but we should stop police from carrying guns because police officers from time to time have done the wrong thing with them. We can't take that away from everybody because of a few people that did something wrong. The same goes for your cell phone is the obvious example. Like that's tracked by all sorts of various companies everywhere you go. And no matter
and
how
it's listening to you.
Right, it's listening to you. Yes. Yeah, if I search right now, I'm probably going to get an ad for flock cameras, to be honest with you. So, and that's, people say that's different because the police need a search warrant to see your information. Well, if I'm going to violate the rules, I can get a search warrant for your phone today by lying. I can do something wrong to get that information. I have very little concern about our officers abusing this. But that being said, I'm not naive either. We have a policy already set up. We have audits that would be in place to ensure that when we use it, it's for the right reason and not a violation of policy. And it's, like I say, it takes pictures of every car that goes by it. to me, I'm not concerned about it because who really wants to take the time to run 10,000 cars, that drove through the city in a day? Like, that's kind of a waste of time and a needle in a haystack. So I understand the concerns about it, but I think they're very minimal in reality.
That makes sense. When we're looking at how this kind of system operates, is it something that is handled by a third party, or is it directly like under the control of police?
Well, Flock is the owner of the company.
That's the company, yeah.
But the data that our cameras that we pay for, or our license plate readers, is our data.
Okay.
Meaning they can't sell it, they can't give it to anybody without our consent. That's one of the concerns that have been brought up, but there's kind of two sides to that. We could take the data and just say it's ours, nobody else can use it. But then all the other law enforcement agencies around us
State
could
police,
say the same thing to us, like, hey, you
like
can't
that,
use ours then.
Yeah.
It's kind of, if we all invest in this technology and use it together, that's when it's the most useful. So I think there are safeguards in place to prevent people from doing the wrong thing with it, and I think they're definitely adequate, and it's a very minimal risk of people abusing this.
Rod, I might be misinterpreting things, but you might work a little bit more close to ground level when it comes to this kind of thing. What's the attitude of personnel in the department when it comes to something like this?
They're really hoping that we are able to acquire these cameras, mainly because they talk to officers that they are friends with from other departments and see the success rates that they're having. Crimes that happen where maybe you have a very loose description of a vehicle, a dark four-door sedan with a dent in the left rear corner. Really, what are we going to do with that, right? There's not much we can do with that. However, with this system, we can put some of those details in and narrow down the time frame that this crime occurred in this location, and we might be able to develop a suspect from it. And it's so they're definitely looking forward, hoping that we are able to acquire it, and it just help them do a better job of serving the citizens and reducing crime. They do a great job. Like, I can't go into all the details, but yesterday we had an amazing job done by our guys and gals. They're just out there working hard every day, and this tool is something that can, again, it's a tool. It's another thing they can add to a majority of the things that they do to help them do what they want to do best, and that's make a safe community.
That makes sense. We won't get too deep into it because it's a hot button topic, but I'm curious because we're talking about license plate readers here. When you drive over a toll bridge, go down a toll road, there's a license plate reader taking that. Could law enforcement, I'm not saying does Bay City, but could law enforcement have agreements in place with those companies that manage those? Is that something that's done elsewhere?
They could. A lot of times it's dependent upon the company. Say, with us, I'll be honest, Bay City Bridge Partners, if we need information, they generally will provide it. But they own that system, and that's their data. And that's actually, to be honest, gathers way more information than a Flock camera would. Meaning, like, they actually, not only take a picture of the license plate, but also run the registered owner to find out who it belongs to where they can mail the bill.
True.
It's a lot more information than what the Flock cameras collect.
So, say the Flock cameras get put in, they get purchased, they get put in. What is the process like if there's a suspect vehicle out there and an officer wants to try and locate it using this technology? What does that look like for that officer?
They can search, whether it's just within our system or they can search nationwide on the Flock system. If they have a specific plate, it's pretty easy. You type in the plate, say, during this time frame, was this plate in this area? It'll be specific time and date, what time it went by a certain intersection. For us, we have had, over the past 5 years, more gunfire within the city, not necessarily people getting shot, but more incidents of gunfire than in the first 20-some years of my career. Like, just, it's been a lot more. And a lot of times these involve a vehicle, and it's in the middle of the night where there's not much traffic. If we were to have something like this in place, instead of waiting, we generally catch them eventually, but sometimes it's after they've done it 10 or 12 times. And with this type of technology, the first time, if you're driving around the city at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's just not that many cars out there.
Yeah.
And if you get even a little bit of a description, you can narrow it down between 1 and 2 a.m., a, silver SUV with the first 2 digits of their plate, and it'll narrow it down, and it gives you a lot more likelihood of finding somebody quickly.
We got to take a break coming up here soon, but just one more question. When we're talking about equipment, technology, things like that being invested in, a lot of times there's grants, state, federal, whatever, dollars that can be applied for. Is this something that would qualify for that?
Actually, a portion of this investment, about $8,000, is federal grant money.
Okay.
That has to be used for law enforcement purpose. So this was what we were designating it for.
All right. And where is the process at right now? It's just kind of wanting to get it through? Or
doing a presentation to the City Commission on November 17th with FLOC representatives there, and that it should be voted on that night at their discretion to see whether or not we implement it. In the meantime, I've been going to the chamber breakfast the other day. I've been going to a lot of CDC meetings and the DDA meetings just to ask if anybody had questions, to kind of explain the technology and talk about the need for them.
All right. Well, I'm sure when you give that presentation on the 17th, people will be flocking to City Hall to check it out.
Well done.
You said you expected puns. I had to give you one.
There's one.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk some more with Public Safety Director Caleb Rowell and Deputy Director Rod Schenk.
With
Welcome back to the Art Lewis Show. Jonathan Dent filling in for Art this morning. The Art Lewis Show is presented by Westside Decorating Center. Visit them at 5789 State Street in Saginaw or go online to westsidedecoratingcenter.com. I'm joined this morning by Bay City Department of Public Safety Director Caleb Rowell and Deputy Director Rod Schenk. Talking a little bit about how things are going in Bay City, and given the date, I think it's topical to talk a little bit about Halloween, especially with the law enforcement side of things. We talk about Devil's Night the night before, and then Halloween being, you've got people, kids walking across streets and out in the neighborhoods and things.
Yes.
What is law enforcement preparing for the next? I'm sure it's not as much as it might have been in previous years. I don't see as much.
Right. I hate
wrong.
to even say this out loud, but it's been,
You don't need to say the Q word.
Yeah, it's run very well the past several years. We haven't had too many, issues other than a few minor things, but hopefully that trend continues, and we see a lot of people out and about, and the weather cooperates, and
I know.
A safe night.
We talk about Detroit decades ago having big problems around Halloween. Saginaw had it for a while. We had a conversation with a caller on Tuesday. Charlie was filling in. A caller called in to talk about the Arson Watch program in Saginaw. Was that ever really a big concern in Bay City?
It's always a concern just because it's happening, fairly close to us. So we always, for the longest time, we actually had a lot of volunteers from REACT, which is like a radio club, I guess.
Ham radio
type club.
Yeah, we've talked with them before.
And they would, assist us basically by driving around, and if they saw anything, they would call and let us know. We had some extra people. It's just they did that for years and nothing ever happened, which is a good thing, but it kind of went by the wayside a little bit just because there wasn't a need for it, and we're hoping that
that's a good reason.
That trend continues.
Absolutely. when it comes to community engagement and involvement. There's a lot of events going on this time of year. Is the Department of Public Safety out and about?
Yeah, we get lots of invitations, I guess, or requests to stop by. There's a lot of trunk or treats, which I think are, to me, they're a beautiful thing, because if you go to a sealed off parking lot and walk around to a bunch of different cars, nobody's going to run you over. There's no traffic to deal with. It's generally a very safe environment, and I think that's kind of the wave of the future, where it's not that we've had incidents of trick-or-treaters getting run over or anything, but there's always the close calls, people driving past and almost hitting kids, or it's kind of a dangerous situation when you're walking around in the dark. And I always say you should have something highly visible on, but they're kids and they're not always going to pay attention to that. So I like these trunk or treat events, and we always, whenever we can, stop by just to say hi to the kids, and you'll get the proverbial from everybody, "Hey, nice costume," to the officer wearing it. They, will sometimes laugh and sometimes go, "Geez, okay. I've heard that joke 100 times tonight."
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll close out with Public Safety Department from Bay City.
Back in the good old days, though.
Welcome back to the Art Lewis Show. Jonathan Dent filling in for Art. One more segment here on a Thursday morning. I'll be filling in for Art again tomorrow, and then Matt Fallon will be in for Art all next week. And then the one, the only Art Lewis will be back the following week. But for right now, we're talking with Bay City Department of Public Safety Director Caleb Rowell and Deputy Director Rod Shank. And gentlemen, in the last segment, we talked about Halloween and how law enforcement around that is hopefully continues to be pretty simple. But when we went off the air, you mentioned the time change coming up, and there were some eye rolls when it came to that. And I was like, really? And I found out recently that car crashes go up when there's a time change and all that. Why? What's the reaction to the time change for? Well,
you happen to have, both of us probably spent the majority of our career working night shift. So you got that perspective. And
okay,
when the time goes back an hour, that just means you have to work an extra hour.
It's true.
There's no advantage there. But the main thing is the for whatever reason, the bars are able to stay open that extra hour because of the time change. And I don't know why, but that extra hour usually results in more calls to the bar, let's say.
Really?
So
a few extra.
I'd be happy if they did away with that.
Yeah, and this year combining it with Halloween weekend, it could be an interesting hour there.
All right. Well, best of luck to you there. Just a few odds and ends here that I've been writing down through the course of this conversation. We talked in the first segment a little bit about recruitment and the police academy with Delta. But you mentioned while we were off the air something that I didn't know, something that I find super interesting. When it comes to training firefighters, that's all through the department.
Yeah, it was actually the fire chief's idea, I don't know, several years ago, Kurt Karate, who mentioned, we can run our own academy. We have enough instructors here to do it. And we gave it a shot, and it's probably the best thing we ever did for the combined department. It creates... Number one, you got all of our full-time fire personnel that have been doing the job for a while, that know all the ins and outs, teaching the new people. So they teach them how we do it specifically in Bay City. And the most valuable thing, in my opinion, about it is the camaraderie it creates. Because law enforcement and fire division is often, they don't see each other all the time. They're separate a lot of the time. Then they get together when there's a fire. But creating that camaraderie right off the get-go when people are in their first, couple of years being a police officer with all the members of the fire division has been invaluable.
And I imagine when you're training for a fire scenario, being the only time that these personnel are really working together, it helps to have them training together as well.
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
I can see that being a huge benefit.
It's just knowing each other on a personal level helps tremendously. You're not saying, hey, you come here and help me. You actually know each other and have worked together and spent time together. So